So we're going to be using AMD's Vivado Design Suite and Vitis to do all of our development. And so in order to get started, we will have to download those. So a quick Vivado download search will bring you up here, and you can either choose to go straight into the downloads or look at their marketing material. One thing I want to note here is if you come down here and you can see the different editions, there's the free and the enterprise edition licensing. If you actually click into this, you can see that there's not really any real difference between the free and the enterprise version, other than the fact that there's only a limited number of devices supported on the free edition. And this doesn't matter for what we're doing. So if you actually go in and look at this, on the Zybo boards that we'll be using, we either use the 10 or the 20 version, which is free, and really any entry-level development board that you'll be using will work with the free edition. And even if you're using a more advanced development board, especially one coming from AMD, they'll always include a license as well. So it's just a single download. The only difference is which devices end up being supported. And so cost is not something to worry about here. You will be able to get started and use this for free. So if we come back here and go into the downloads, you can see that there are several different versions. And those of you coming from the software world might assume that you just always want to download the newest version, but that's not the case with hardware. So you should not assume that updates are transparent. You should not assume that a project started in one version will just work in the next version. You should actually assume that whenever you change which version you're using, any existing project you have will break. And so for a couple of reasons, I'm choosing to go into the Vivado archive, and we'll be using 2023.2. If you have a newer version or a different version, you're welcome to use it. I'll just be using 2023.2 because the 2023.2 version provides some transparency that newer versions don't, that I think are really useful for educational reasons. So if you're starting fresh, I just would suggest using 2023.2, but you are welcome to use a newer version if you would like. And then if you scroll down, you can see that there are a couple different options you have. You can either choose the Windows self-extracting web installer, which is what I'll be using. You can also have a Linux version of it, or a very large 100 plus gigabyte zip drive that you can download. You can do this. It's just downloads everything that you could possibly include in your install, which is why it's so large. If you don't have that much space on your machine, or you just don't want to take up that much space, I'd recommend using the web installer. So when you click on here, it'll ask you to log in. And if you don't have an account, you will have to create an account. All right, so once you log in, you'll be greeted by this page, which is just saying that Vivado is actually an export controlled piece of software. And so it makes you fill out a form saying what your name is, where you live, and why you're downloading it. So then you can just click download, which will download the installer. All right, so once that's installed, you can see over here that they actually give you an MD5 hash value if you want to check that. So if you are interested, I'll give you a quick view of that. So we can just change directory into our downloads folder, and then do cert util hash file, and then our file name, which was the 2023.2 version, and then MD5 for the MD5 hash. Hit enter, that'll work for a second, and you can see that the hash value is accurate. So we're all good, our download was correct. So then we can execute our downloaded file. Go through allow eclipse, and it'll give you a warning saying that this is not the newest tool. We say we understand, continue. On here we can see what the supported Windows operating systems are. So professional enterprise Windows 10, enterprise Windows 11. In general, I haven't had issues on professional versus enterprise. I'm using a professional version of Windows 11, and I've never had any issues, but just so that you're aware, those are the officially supported operating systems. It will make you log in once again. And this part's confusing. We've been talking about Vivado, not Vitis, but we actually want to choose Vitis because that includes Vivado. So we want to install Vitis and Vivado both. And so that's that top option. And then once we get here, we have some choices. So you can see that that the download size is 90 gigabytes the way it is right now, and it will require 264 gigabytes total. If that's too much space for you, or if you're following along with me and using the Zybo, we actually only need the Zinc 7000. So you can see that as you start unclicking some of these options, our size will start going down. If you don't have size restraints, I recommend just leaving all of these, because if you start using different boards, then you don't need to go back and reinstall these things later. So in general, leave it all installed unless size is an issue, and then you can start playing around. The only thing you have to have installed are the Zinc 7000 and all of your Vitis options. You also definitely want to make sure that you install your cable drivers. If you're on Linux, this is not an option, and there's a separate script you have to run. So we can say next. We have to agree to all of the licenses. And then we have to choose where we want these to be installed. So it'll default to creating a Xilinx folder and then adding in the 2023.2 version. If you have to install multiple versions, which happens fairly frequently actually, if you're working on different projects that have previously been worked on different versions, then you'll find different versions inside of each of these folders. I'm gonna leave that all as the default and go next and install. So now this takes a little while. It'll depend on your internet speed for the initial download, and then it'll also depend on the speed of your computer for the actual install and final processing. So I will go ahead and stop the recording here for a second and skip ahead once this is done. All right, and so now our installation was successful. One thing that happened that I didn't show is that as we were doing the final processing, it popped up requesting to allow WinPCAP to install, which I chose not to install. Especially on Windows 11, I saw some answers online that there are compatibility issues. WinPCAP is an older piece of software. I chose to not install it, and everything seems to be working well. I've never had any issues not installing it, but something to keep in mind, and up to you if you choose to install that or not. So we can say okay. And now if we go to our desktop, you can see that I have a 2024 version and my 2023 version. So we have our Vitis, which is the new unified version of Vitis, classic version of Vitis, and Vivado. And so everything is installed. We can go ahead and open up Vivado, which it's a pretty hefty program, so it takes a second to load up. If you don't get this pop-up window right away, give it a moment. I often think it's hung and not working, especially on a lower power computer. And so now we are here at our quick start, and we can go ahead with getting started with one of our hardware projects.